Kamala Harris, my friends, has done it again. Another proposal copied from the Trump campaign. Just a couple of days ago, JD Vance went on Face the Nation and talked about a desire for a $5,000 child tax credit. And now the Harris campaign has announced that they want a $6,000 child tax credit. This is quite interesting. But what makes this even more interesting is that the media is pretending this is brand spanking new. So, oh me, oh my friends, this seems to be a tale of a two-faced media. The media, unsurprisingly, seems to be in Kamala Harris's corner, and they're doing everything they can to prop her up. To give an example of this, I'm going to pull up two separate articles. One, which was posted this morning by CNN, and one posted 3 days ago by CBS, talking about the JD Vance proposal. We're going to start with CNN. So this is titled, Harris to propose tax cuts for middle-class Americans as part of economic policy rollout. They write, Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday is expected to propose a new plan to cut taxes for middle-class and lower-income Americans as part of her economic policy rollout, according to Harris-Walz campaign officials. The plan would offer tax relief for more than 100 million Americans. Much of the plan revives or extends temporary measures that President Joe Biden and congressional Democrats enacted in major packages when the party controlled Congress during the first 2 years of Biden's term. Harris's proposal would restore the American Rescue Plan's popular expansion of the child tax credit to as much as $3,600, up from $2,000, and call for it to be made permanent. The enhancement was only in effect in 2021. Biden and Democrat leaders on Capitol Hill have been unsuccessful in their efforts to partially revive it, in part because of its hefty price tag. A bipartisan bill that would have temporarily beefed up the child tax credit passed the House earlier this year, but was blocked by Republicans in the Senate. The proposal would also add a new child tax credit of up to $6,000 for middle-class and lower-income families with children in their first year of life. That's when a family's expenses, such as cribs, diapers, and car seats, can be at their highest, and when many parents have to take time off of their jobs, the campaign noted. Harris's economic policy would also expand the Earned Income Tax Credit, known as the EITC, to offer frontline workers without dependent children a tax reduction of up to $1,500. The American Rescue Plan enhanced the maximum credit, which is available to workers in lower-income jobs, to roughly that amount. But the enhancement to the EITC was only in effect for 2021. And scrolling down to the bottom here, they write, the Harris's campaign argued against Trump's economic agenda as it seeks to draw a stark contrast, arguing he is, quote, running on a promise to give another billionaire tax break to his ultra-wealthy friends. The former president's plan, according to the campaign, will give billionaires a tax handout of $3.5 million apiece each year and give big corporations a $1.5 trillion windfall and make it easier for wealthy tax cheats to avoid paying what they own. Now that's all very interesting, my friends. Not only is the coverage of this in a positive spin and light, but nowhere is there a mention in that article that the Trump campaign has already pushed the idea of expanding the child tax credit themselves. This, by the way, is now the second Trump policy that the Kamala Harris campaign has blatantly copied in recent days. Remember this from just a few days ago? And there is merit to all of this. Kamala Harris is even avoiding talking about any of her policies that she would put in place as president, with the one notable exception of copying Donald Trump's announced plans to end tax on tips.
Because when I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes
June
on
19th.
tips, people making tips.
Eliminate taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers.
August 10th.
Because when I get to office,
So there is that, right? But the real reason that Kamala Harris is hiding from the public, I think, has less to do with policy and getting tough questions about her policies, and more about because the more she opens her mouth, the more the public dislikes her and the greater her cringe statements become. Okay, so now that we got a taste for CNN's sweet coverage for Kamala Harris, let's take a look at CBS News. This is just 3 days ago. The article is titled, JD Vance wants a $5,000 child tax credit, or 150% more than the current child tax credit, or CTC. Here's what to know. They write, Senator JD Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee, says he wants to boost the child tax credit to $5,000 per child from its current $2,000, an effort that could add trillions in federal spending, according to policy experts. Already we can see the tone is very different here. Let's see. JD Vance said, "I'd love to see a child tax credit that's $5,000 per child," he said while on Face the Nation with Margaret Brennan. President Trump has been on the record for a long time supporting a bigger child tax credit, and I think you want it to apply to all American families. Vance's idea for boosting the child tax credit by 150% comes less than 2 weeks after a bill that would have provided a modest expansion in the tax benefit failed in the Senate due to Republican opposition. Supporters of an expanded CTC argue that it would help low and middle income families navigate the cost of raising a child, but it's also likely to come with a big price tag for the federal government, according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, a nonpartisan think tank focused on fiscal policy issues. Here's where it gets good. Goldwyn, Senior Policy Director for the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, told CBS Money Watch, "We could easily be talking about $2 to $3 trillion in additional borrowing over the next decade. That's a tremendous amount of money." But Vance didn't provide details about how he would expand the child tax credit, which makes it difficult to pinpoint the exact cost. Goldwyn added, "For instance, Vance didn't disclose if he envisions a fully refundable $5,000 CTC, meaning that people who claim it could receive the entire amount as a tax refund. That would make it more expensive than if it were partially refundable, as the child tax credit currently is." Vance hinted that he would like to see an expanded CTC without income thresholds, as the current tax credit phases out for single filers earning over $200,000 and married couples more than $400,000 in income. JD Vance said, "You don't want a different policy for higher income families. You just want to have a pro-family child tax credit." And then let's go to the bottom of the article. They say, how much is the child tax credit? The CTC currently stands at $2,000, but during the pandemic, it had a temporary expansion that boosted the benefit to as much as $3,600 per child. That helped lift more than 2 million children out of poverty, this according to the U.S. Census data. But the CTC is facing another major change. In 2026, the tax credit will revert back to $1,000 per child. That's because the benefit was doubled to $2,000 per child by former President Donald Trump's Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which went into effect in 2018. But many of the TCJA's provisions, including the more generous CTC, expire at the end of 2025. Meanwhile, Vance has advocated for policies that would encourage Americans to have more children, but even boosting the CTC by 150% isn't likely to move the needle that much. The cost of raising a child from birth to age 18 is about $240,000, according to a 2023 study. Some countries have sought to boost their birth rates by providing payments that have had mixed results, such as Australia, which started a baby bonus about 2 decades ago. Its birth rate bumped up in the following years, but has since sunk to a lower rate than the benefit was first introduced. This according to the Sydney Morning Herald. Goldwyn noted, $5,000 a year, it's going to lighten the load, but won't cover all the costs. Financial benefits don't move the needle much in fertility. Now, the tone difference here is clear. For JD Vance, it's critical. They are talking about the expenses of it, and it's not put in a positive light in any way, shape, matter, or form. And when you compare to CNN, the difference is stark. When they are covering Kamala, the media doesn't seem to fret whatsoever about potential costs for any of her policies, and especially with these tax credits. Instead, it's all fluff about how this will help families buy cribs, diapers, and car seats. But for the Trump campaign, it's trillions of dollars in additional borrowing. Now, of course, this isn't anything new. The mainstream media has, for a long time now, been a propaganda wing of the Democrat Party. This is just a continuation of that. But I still find it incredible that none of the major news networks are daring to point out the blatant copying of Trump's policies here. And the fact that we're talking about 3 days removed from JD Vance it's just incredible. It's almost like the Kamala Harris campaign is throwing things at the wall and just hoping that they stick. Now, to be fair on all of this, the CTC, this is a policy that, while primarily advocated for by Republicans, has seen Democrat support from time to time. And this does include, as the CBS News article pointed out, Joe Biden temporarily expanding Trump's child tax credit of $2,000 to $3,600. My guess is that the Kamala Harris campaign is doing their best to just rewrite her history as the hardline leftist that she is, an incompetent vice president. and instead replace it in part by stealing Republican policies that they find poll well, and at the same time using her slavish media allies to cover this up and to push this narrative of a new, competent, smart, hardworking black female. This is why she's been hiding from the media, my friends. She is hoping to avoid the public as long as possible so that there is little time for the public to really cast a critical gaze at her, especially considering that early ballots are opening soon. Her campaign, I think, is banking on a short-term memory of the American people. Now, whether or not she can get away with this, time will tell, and I suppose we're just going to have to wait and see. From the To Be Frank show, my friends, I'm Adrian. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in the next video.